Hello, Colorado. We love Colorado.
It's the President's Day in Colorado. President Trump rallies Republicans in Colorado Springs, while two Democratic women who want his job also swing through looking for votes. We sit down with another of the candidates tonight. And because politicians deserve to feel the heat, not kids.
It's going to hopefully make it so it's not so miserable in the classroom.
Colorado's largest school district has an idea to cool down. And a special building in our city is saved. All that is next. President Trump is holding court at a rambling rally in Colorado Springs right now to the cheers of a packed arena of supporters. He opened with the one thing that Republicans and Democrats both wanted him to say today, that Senator Cory Gardner has been in lockstep with him all the way. Republicans in the room applauded, and Democrats will put it in their campaign ads. President Trump spent the last 30 minutes of the rally on the usual smattering of topics, complaining that a foreign film won the Oscars, reading 10 minutes of online poll results, and making fun of Mike Bloomberg's height. Let's listen in now to see what about.
I said, let me see you. I want to see what you look like. He stands up, uniform, everything else. And by the way, I did something for Air Force, but I did something for all of the academies. If you were a great athlete, and they had a hard time recruiting, although they've done well, if you're a great athlete, you can't, we wanted to sort of get them to go, but they didn't because they didn't want to serve 5 years in the military and then they'd go into the NFL or baseball. So I had one of the teams in. They said, sir, give us the waiver, sir. They've been after the waiver. You know what the waiver is? That means that if you're a great athlete, you can go to the Air Force Academy or Army, Navy, the Coast Guard. You can go to one of our service academies. I did the rule, and we got it through Congress. And you don't have to serve. You go directly into the major leagues, into the NFL, and you serve your time after when you get out. Isn't that correct? And the Army coach, who's a great guy, all great guys, Navy coach, the Army coach, said, sir, if you do that, we can compete with anybody because we lost a lot of great athletes.
I don't know if they can compete with Air Force. Air Force is pretty good. There are very few people who can come into Colorado Springs and talk about how great Army and Navy are and not get booed, and that man is one of them right there, the President of the United States, Donald Trump. We will hear from Marshall Zellinger, who is at the rally and saw the lead up and which speakers were featured, which ones weren't. We'll check back in with him at the President's rally in just a moment. Denver Public Schools thinks it has a solution for a lack of air conditioning in 57 of its school buildings. And the solution is not adding air conditioning. Mark Salinger shows us a new proposal to shift when the school year starts in the hottest part of those months.
If you've been outside today, it's hard to imagine thinking about air conditioning, but AC, or lack thereof, is on the minds of Denver school board members.
It's going to hopefully make it so it's not so miserable in the classrooms.
The superintendent for Denver Public Schools will propose shifting the calendar for 57 schools in the district without air conditioning, having students start class when it's not so hot outside.
This is an opportunity to find a cost-effective way to alleviate some of that heat without putting air conditioning in our buildings.
Board member Scott Balderman says school would start the first week of September, 2 weeks later than the current calendar. It would end in early June, 1 week later than what's on the schedule now. Somewhere in the calendar, the district will have to find 5 days where students aren't currently in class to make up for the changes.
Studies show that when kids are in hot classrooms, they don't do as well at learning.
The district says it would cost more than $200 million to add air conditioning to every school. This proposal would give schools without AC the option to keep kids out of 90-degree classrooms, like we saw this past summer.
We just got to weigh the benefits and figure out what is going to be the most effective way with a limited budget that we have.
Now, an actual calendar showing the exact dates hasn't been released yet. Kyle, the changes would only impact those 57 schools that don't have air conditioning in DPS.
And the schools get some leeway in this, too.
Yeah, even if they pass this, even if the board passes this, it doesn't mean that every school has to adopt this calendar. That'll be up to each school.
They're going to be sitting there sweating. The kids are going, come on, you had a chance.
You have to adopt
You could have saved us. All right.
We'll see what happens.
Thank you. An elected state representative made up a conspiracy theory about Senator Bernie Sanders' health last night. This wasn't a Republican doing this. It was Democratic State Rep Sonia Jaquez-Lewis from Boulder County, who claimed without evidence that Senator Sanders may have had a stroke. Jaquez-Lewis tweeted out her theory during last night's debate. Now, you may know Senator Sanders is facing questions about how much of his medical records he'll release after he had a heart attack. But this stroke claim appears to be pure political retaliation from Representative Jaquez Lewis, because when we questioned her about it today, she blamed Sanders supporters, who she called Bernie bros, saying that they're online harassers and bullies. The representative indicated that that is why she made up the theory about Sanders' health, but she said that she regretted doing it and noted that she had deleted it. Her Democratic leadership at the Capitol declined to talk to us about it. Senator Sanders sat down with me for a one-on-one conversation earlier this week. We talked about a number of Colorado-specific issues, and you can see that on the next YouTube channel right now. We have invited all 8 of the Democratic candidates for president, as well as President Trump himself, to join us here for a similar discussion. Tomorrow on Next, we'll talk one-on-one with Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, who is in Aurora tonight for a rally at the Stanley Marketplace and then a fundraiser. This afternoon, I sat down with Democratic presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard. The Congresswoman from Hawaii has struggled to break out of the back of the pack with her frequent criticisms of the Democratic Party. She uses her military experience to argue strenuously against our current interventionist policies. There are about 35,000 active military families in the state of Colorado. Yeah. Saw a number of folks in your audience today. What would you like to fundamentally change about how the American military is utilized?
By ensuring that our men and women in uniform, those who take that oath of loyalty, willing to lay their lives down in service to our country, are honored by only sending them on missions that are truly worthy of their sacrifice, that are missions actually serving our country's national security, the safety, security, and freedom of the American people.
You are currently suing Hillary Clinton for
Yes.
suggesting that you are a Russian asset. I want to kind of set aside the name-calling portion of this and try to look at the core of the criticism, because a lot of the same has been said about President Trump. People will name-call and say that somebody's a Russian asset, but set that aside. Your Middle East policy, would that not be an asset to Russia?
I don't know how you can ask me to set aside a baseless accusation coming from the former Secretary of State, former First Lady, former U.S. Senator, that attempts to devalue the very essence of who I am. The accusation that she has made isn't just something like, well, this is just something someone threw out. No, this is something that attempts to devalue who I am as a person and what I have dedicated my life to, just as it devalues the same oath of service that every one of our service members has taken. My foreign policy is focused around what serves the best interests of the American people and our nation's national security, and how we as the United States can actually be the force for good in the world that represents our values.
Gabbard and I also discussed her focus on protecting online privacy. You can see that and all of our unedited interviews with the presidential primary candidates on the next YouTube channel. Democratic Governor Jared Polis has been mocking President Trump's visit to Colorado on one hand and greeting him with the other, making fun of the visit yesterday, a team email saying it would be the usual diatribe of lies and insults, and today waiting for the president's plane to arrive so he could get some face-to-face time with him. The governor met with the president on board Air Force One when it landed in Colorado Springs this afternoon. The governor's office put out a statement saying that he personally appealed to President Trump to place the Space Command facility in Colorado permanently. Today's next question is in response to a story we talked about yesterday. After seeing our Remembrance Day coverage of the internment camp for Japanese Americans in southeast Colorado, Amachi, George wanted to know what happened to the land of Amachi, the camp, after World War II. We reached out to the Amachi Preservation Society for an answer to George's question and learned that the land was purchased by the city of Granada when the camp was closed, and the city has had it ever since, about 640 acres. The city uses the same water well and the same water tanks that were used at the height of the camp when about 7,000 people were interned there. The Preservation Society has a lease on the land, and they've been working to restore parts of Amachi for a few decades now. We've taken you there for a number of stories over the years. There's a reconstructed barracks and a guard tower on the land. A new museum is coming to Granada, which will feature items collected from the camp. Amachi is considered a national landmark, and the Preservation Society would like it to someday be a national park. Now, most of the camp's land, about 10,000 acres in all, the land that we told you last night, was condemned and seized from ranchers who would not sell it. Most of that land was sold off after the war to be used for farming or wildlife areas. Denver's auditor says the Board of Ethics needs reforms, so guys like this one can't get away with it again.
The trust issue between community and law enforcement will always be a question.
She was a woman of many firsts for the Denver Police Department. Now she is helping departments across the country better interact with their communities. And how about that? Some neighbors in Denver actually saved a special building. Next.
Gorgeous day across the entire state. Nice to have some sunshine, some bright blue skies. This is the view out there in Steamboat. Sandy capturing that awesome shot. And a snapshot of the month of February as far as our temperatures go. Yeah, it's been on the cooler side, below average for sure, with a string of below average days this week. But looking ahead toward Friday, the start of the weekend, a nice little warm up on the way. Courtesy high pressure as it's driving into Colorado. That means a drier day and also a warmer one too. Tonight, clear skies out there. Temps though falling into the teens across the plains, and will go sub-zero tonight in Steamboat, down to 2 in Winter Park and 3 in Vail. Futurecast looking pretty quiet. Tomorrow morning you wake up, maybe a little bit of patchy fog across the South Platte River Valley. Otherwise a dry day, great traveling weather tomorrow too if you're trying to get out of town. Plenty of sunshine out there and highs back in the mid-50s. So a huge warm up compared to the past couple of days, even up in the mountains with some 30s and 40s. We are looking at a even warmer Saturday for you, but here we go again. Possibly a couple of rain showers early Sunday morning, quickly switches over to snow, a cool day on Sunday, and then Kyle, of course, another storm on the way next Tuesday.
Of course. All right. Thank you so much, Danielle. I want to take you back down to Colorado Springs, where President Trump's rally for Republicans continues. He's called up a number of elected Republicans from Colorado on stage. There you see behind him Congressman Scott Tipton in the red tie, and you see Congressman Doug Lamborn over the president's other shoulder. He had Senator Cory Gardner standing in the audience just a moment ago, and right outside of the frame of the shot is the Interior Secretary, David Bernhardt, who is from Rifle, Colorado. Let's listen again quickly to the president.
Phenomenal deal. It's called UFC. He's the UFC president. And they just sold the company. He started it off for about $30, and they just sold it for $4 billion. And the people that bought it said, we're not buying it unless Dana White stays back and runs it. So Dana White, come on up. He's now a very wealthy guy. Come here.
So he's introducing Dana White, who's he's the guy who used to own UFC fighting. So it's an eclectic mix of celebrities in the world of business and politics. Oh, hey, there's Ken Buck in the America tie. Ken Buck being the congressman from Weld County, as well as Colorado's GOP chairman. With all respect to the UFC, if the president is not going to be speaking, I think we'll take a quick break. Denver's auditor would like the city ethics board to, have some teeth. We told you how the ethics case of Scott Prisco, who used his job as a building official with the city to help his wife's business, didn't result in any significant discipline. Well, our 9 Wants to Know team learned today that Prisco's boss is considering tougher punishment than that slap on the wrist he's received so far. It's punishment that the ethics board itself cannot currently issue.
The initial response from the city was to say that it was just a, kind of a lapse in judgment, and I think that the Board of Ethics thought it was a much more serious situation than his supervisor, at least immediately, seemed to have.
If the ethics board had the kind of authority that we were talking about this morning, that they could have taken some action.
The auditor is recommending that the ethics board be allowed to punish someone for breaking the rules instead of outsourcing that to their bosses. And he's suggesting that the ethics board be allowed to launch its own investigations rather than waiting on formal complaints. It's now up to Denver City Council to assess those changes. She spent 25 years protecting Denver's streets.
First commander, African-American commander for Denver, first female captain for the city of Denver.
Today, she's honored for her work in our community that went beyond the call of duty. Senator Cory Gardner is there at the president's podium. Let's listen.
As a result of your work, The Bureau of Land Management is now headquartered in the great state of Colorado. United States Space Command and Space Force are operating out of Colorado Springs. And just a few miles to the south, please understand how big this is. In 1962, President John F. Kennedy went to Pueblo, Colorado, and he talked about building a pipeline in Pueblo, Colorado. Was it built? We got the money 2 weeks ago to begin construction, thanks to President Donald Trump.
Senator Gardner rattling off some of the accomplishments which he has said in the last few years could not have been done without his cooperation with President Donald Trump. Dr. Tracy Kazee, first African-American woman to be a Denver Police Division chief, first ever deputy commissioner of equality and inclusion for the NYPD, is being honored during this Black History Month at the Denver Police Museum.
I'm Dr. Tracy Kazee. I am a retiree of the Denver Police Department after 25 years.
Whoever answered that phone says you were the best thing that ever happened.
Well, you're so sweet. Hey, well, today, it's a good day to be honored and recognized by the Caldwell African American Library, the Black Police Officers Organization, the Denver Police Museum, and the Denver Police Department. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you could make it. How are you, my dear? Oh, you look gorgeous as always. I've probably been about 3 firsts. First commander, African-American commander for Denver, first female captain for the city of Denver, the first African-American in New York to hold the Office of Equity and Inclusion. And in New York, we would bring classes of 500 in every quarter. I co-founded the Center for Policing Equity. It's a research think tank that looks at issues of disparities in between police departments and communities. The trust issue between community and law enforcement will always be a question until we figure out what type of policing do communities want, and what kind of police officer do we want? Yeah. Really, it is about recognition of the work, and it is also a celebration of Black History Month. It's always a sense of pride, but you always have to ask yourself, at what moment in time will we stop being firsts?
We can tell you tonight the Berkeley Chapel's been saved. The neighbors working to preserve it announced it's been sold, and not to that one developer who wanted to demolish it. GM Development is the buyer, and neighbors say that company supports a landmark designation preventing the demolition of the Olinger Moore Howard Chapel, which sits at 46 and Sheridan in Denver's Berkeley neighborhood. Your feedback about this, the President's Day, next. The most Colorado thing we saw today are a few of our own who are tougher than Mother Nature, like the guy in shorts at the Netherland Park and Ride. Ann says when she snapped the photo of the bus driver, the thermometer inside read 0. And the next viewer on Twitter sent us this photo of a guy rocking shorts in a lawn chair out in the snow in Lone Tree. Angelo says that he changed the channel tonight because we showed the president. We're going to show the president. He's the president. Ken changed the channel because he thought we were being unfair to the president. Said, since you're not interviewing him like you do the other candidates. Ken, we have invited him on, and we hope that he'll accept. Maybe even next time.